We do complete drills and exercises inside the facility just to make sure that our line staff are familiar with their equipment, that they can provide response. It provides a measure or a means to measure our response time. It evaluates our external agency coordination, and it establishes our familiarity with the ICS structure as a whole. Annually, every facility is charged with completing an external agency participation drill, meaning that we can offer participation through PSP, County Emergency Assistance, a variety of external agency participation, fire companies, local police. We do complete an annual tabletop exercise in the facility. Basically what that is usually line staff will form a group and they will complete just the documentation of the exercise completed, more with a paper line trail to make sure that they have a sound understanding of the ICS structure. We do have 6 unannounced lockdowns that occur in the facility annually. During those periods of time, we do assess the ICS structure in regard to staff and inmate accountability. We do complete internal drills once a quarter, and CERT or callbacks are completed monthly. CERT is the Corrections Emergency Response Team inside a facility. Move on to the special response teams inside the facility. It's important to note that after the Camp Hill riots, the department noted that we had some deficiencies in regards to our special response teams program. We noted the need for increased training in that regards, and we noted that the people that are trained in those fields or for that response, that their skills are perishable, and therefore they have to be acclimated and trained on the level that they are trained to today. The first one that we'll review is the Corrections Emergency Response Team. Basically, that is a response team that is comprised solely of H-1 and H-3 bargaining unit members. The primary mission of CERT is to respond to an adverse act inside a facility and provide tactical resolution for that cannot be achieved through normal security measures. Additionally, this team will support requests from PEMA and SEMA as called upon. They also complete specialized facility searches, particularly general searches that are conducted inside a facility. The Critical Incident Stress Management Team can be comprised of staff, and we encourage it to be comprised of staff in all classifications so that the people that are involved in CISM or debriefings can connect with a peer. Basically what a CISM team or Critical Incident Stress Management Team does is they provide stress debriefing and defusing to staff following an adverse action inside the facility where it is deemed that that action or that event may cause long-term psychological or emotional issues to our staff. And this team will also assist PEMA and SEMA as requested upon. We have the corrections rifle.
Excuse me. Sean?
Major, I just have one question on your CISM teams. Your CISM teams, do they consist of both management and union employees?
There is no management on CISM.
Okay, there's no management on CISM. And is there any privilege that the department provides for the CISM teams?
Any what?
Any privilege that, you know, they can't relate what is told to them?
Yes, there is a confidentiality act that is imposed by that. I do need to note that CISM does require psychology does serve as the head, so if they're classified as management, then that would be management, but they are bound by confidentiality in regards to what is discussed and really introduced inside those meetings.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm sorry.
The next special team we'll review is the Corrections Rifle Specialist Team. This team is comprised solely of H-1 and H-3 staff. The primary function of CRIST is to provide real-time intelligence gathering during an adverse action inside our facility. They will attempt to provide peaceful resolution. However, when necessary, they will direct precision course of fire to a designated target in an effort to save and safeguard innocent lives. Fire emergency response team inside a facility. This team can be comprised of individuals in all classifications inside a facility. Basically, they are charged with fire suppression and smoke control in an effort to minimize injury to staff and to inmates. They also are trained in participation of mass evacuations inside the facility. That is critical in the event that we would have a fire, that we can get those people out, whether it be staff or inmates. And also important to note that a specific number of our CERT members are required to perform and act on as a member of the FERT team inside a facility. The hostage negotiation team inside a facility can be comprised of staff of all classifications. Basically what they do is they provide or respond to incidents that involve hostages or barricaded subjects. Also important to note that facility HNT members are tasked and do respond to incidents inside a facility at times where we cannot gain inmate compliance to certain acts. They will intervene and try to get the inmate to comply. This team will also assist and provide assistance to SEMA and PEMA as requested. Our final response team is the hostage rescue team. It is comprised solely of H-1 and H-3 staff, and basically the objective of HRT is to rescue hostages by neutralizing the hostage takers by forcing surrender or through use of force to include deadly force. We look at mitigation strategies. We do look at the drug interdiction program within the department. It's important to understand where the drug interdiction program was developed or what it developed from. In 1995, the department did have 6% of all inmates that were subjected to urinalysis testing tested positive. The department also in 1995 or prior to that had an increased number of inmate suicides or inmate deaths that were directly related to substance or illegal introduction of narcotics inside our correctional facilities. We do have a philosophy for the drug interdiction program, and basically what it is that illicit drug activity inside our facilities is contradictory to our goals of treatment rehabilitation. It affects the safety of both staff and inmates, and it reduces public confidence in the correctional system. Inmate deaths, inmate suicides, inmate injuries, or thereof actions related to drug interdiction are often ran rampant with media, and therefore, we do look at that and do recognize that the public does have confidence or does have a certain regard they expect our standard or our facilities to maintain in regards to drug interdiction. Our approach to drug interdiction has to be deliberate and it is systematic. It identifies, categorizes, and reduces the risks associated with the introduction of controlled substances inside a correctional facility. The department does have a zero tolerance process or stance for drug interdiction inside the facility. Basically, the actions that are taken must be in accordance with policy and procedure. No level of administration is offered leverage in response to drug interdiction, meaning what is outlined in policy and procedure is the action that must take place. It provides swift response to the violators, and there are defined punitive actions. In order for the drug interdiction program to be successful, there are a compilation of elements that must be in place. It has to be transparent, meaning that the people have to be advised, and inmates, both staff and inmates, know that the policy, what the policy is and what their expectations are in regards to that policy. It has to be responsive in regards to definitive and punitive action. We have to be flexible with the change in trends. We do know change in trends in regards to drug interdiction, drug introduction inside facilities, and often note that those trends are often associated or parallel to drug activity that occurs in the communities. It has to be sensitive to the culture and finally founded on the principles of risk management. We do have mitigation and strategies that are in place for drug interdiction to include urinalysis processes for inmates. All inmates that are assigned to outside work details can be tested quarterly or are tested quarterly. All inmates within the correctional system assigned to departmental facilities are tested yearly. We have oral testing in place for inmates that cannot submit to regular urinalysis procedures. We have searches, both general, the layers of searches, general, random, and investigative searches inside facilities. We have the electronic drug detection equipment, or what's referred to as EDDE equipment, in place for scanning inmates, staff, visitors, and volunteers in our facilities. And we've put X-ray machines in place in mail rooms to X-ray contents received at the facility. We have the employee drug and alcohol testing procedures in place when examples of reasonable suspicion are there. We have mandatory treatment programs in place for staff and inmates that have been found guilty or that have been subjected to policy and procedures for drug interdiction. And finally, we have the drug interdiction unit, or what is commonly referred to as the K-9 unit, in place for the department. Just to bring it all back into perspective in regards to risk management, we know that we have to identify our risks. We have to categorize them as either acceptable or unacceptable. When we apply our mitigation strategies to our plan of actions, we have to have a process where we can consistently monitor the mitigation strategies are in place, and the department does utilize the State Corrections Analysis Network to do that. We refer to that as SCAN. Basically what that is a computerized system that pulls in data and spits data back out. It provides for collection and maintenance and analysis of that data by the people in statistics. And then finally, we use the generated data to measure and adjust our mitigation strategies on an ongoing basis.
Thank you, Major. Any questions from the association?
Just briefly, Major, in regard to the implementation of the security measures that you outlined extensively through your testimony, you mentioned the word H3, and I just wanted to clarify when you refer to H3, what that means. You said H1 and H3.
H3, management would be lieutenants.
Okay.
Captains. Okay.
And they're above, when you talk about H1, you're talking about CO1, CO2?
Yes.
Okay. And when you talk about facility security, if you could put a percentage on or categorize who's implementing the bulk of the facility security, would you say the majority of the security details that you just described in your testimony are completed by H-1 members?
For special response teams, yes. The policy specifically limits that to H1, H3.
Okay.
The multitude, and the ones that were exempt were defined.
Okay. Well, let's talk about, so for the special teams that are set up, the CERT teams, the FERT teams, that's H1 membership basically?
H1 for CERT, H1, H3 for CERT. FERT can be classifications throughout the facility.
Okay. And when you're talking about, for example, the staffing surveys that you talked about, who's completing that type of work?
That work is completed by the individuals assigned to the Central Office Security Division, and everybody that is assigned there is classified as management, and then a representative from the Bureau of Human Resources, and then finally another commissioned officer not directly assigned to that facility.
Okay. So when you talk about staffing surveys, that's generally done by management?
Yes.
Okay. And what about vulnerability assessment? Who's doing that?
Vulnerability assessment